Hi, Caroline Kearney here at Powell Arts, and I'm standing with the talented Sarah Mello in front of her 3 pieces, which will be in our portrait show from just about now, January 19th, to March 12th. Sarah, can you introduce us to your pieces?
Fantastic, I sure can. These are a departure from all the work I've been doing in encaustic. It was taking too long. I needed something to move faster, so I moved over to acrylic monoprint for a while. So these are one of kind. They don't exist anywhere else. And I'm really loving printmaking for the immediacy and the unpredictability. You don't ever quite know what's going to happen next. And these came about because I made a little collagraph of a pair of scissors. That piece someone snapped up right away. But when I posted it in a group and said, these scissors need something, what do they need? One of the group members was like, that reminds me of rocks, paper, scissors. And I love a good joke. So, so then I had to explore that. How would I do rock, paper, scissors? So you have scissor cuts paper, paper covers rock, rock breaks scissor. And actually that final one I had to rip up the collagraph. So that's a bit more. I can't use it any longer either.
I love these. I love the humor in them. I also love how you've explored the layering because you have the rock here and then the rock goes on top, or you have the scissors cut paper, so you have the paper here and then the paper fades behind the rock. And then of course you have the rock covered in paper and the scissors breaking on the rock. And so you have all of the elements of the play in there, but it's also, what's nice is there's an element of play in it, but there's also an element of like thought out organization about how that works, which I think is a really cool feature of these works because you've thought about it like playfully, but you've also used it to arrange as a compositional device.
Yeah.
So
there's a unity in them in how you're using particularly the pink. So could you talk a little bit about
like the earthy tones?
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about how aside from the theme, somebody could look at each one of these and be drawn to them separately, and they make a wonderful grouping.
Yeah, great triptych.
Yeah. So can you talk about your thinking as far as unity and variety?
Well, they definitely are part of a story. And again, I feel very playful. So they are a running joke. And now it makes me think of running with scissors, which may be kind of serious. I used a piece of tissue paper, pattern paper, to create the shape for the printmaking here, and that is the color that paper exists in, and then I just carried that through because it made sense.
Well, also because you get the idea that it's the same piece of paper.
It's the same piece of paper going through its life and its journey. Yeah. I think there was another part to your question.
How did you think of it like as a device through, but how did you think of them independently?
Right. Well, there's certainly there's the different steps in the game, so I really wanted to make clear what was happening, that this is the scissors cutting the paper, and I wanted to make sure that the action of the story, the action of the game is shown in each picture. Mm-hmm. So the paper had to cover the rock, and a little bit of,
I think that one of the things that's interesting about that is that when you're playing it as a child, you always go best 2 out of 3, and yet each one is an individual match, and so like an individual game within the set that becomes the match, and so it's nice that it's the 3. It's all 3, and they can go together, or they can be each individual round, which is nice.
Right, and I think when we were playing around with setting them up, I've been thinking about them as a triptych for so long that I really stopped looking at them individually. But I do love when you go in to look at one, the story becomes something very different. There's something very poignant about that all on its own. And you mentioned there's nature elements in this one by itself as well.
I also think it's interesting because they, on the one hand, there are like, and this goes with portray it, and you're portraying the game, but you're also portraying the individual objects. But because you're also portraying the game, there are elements of realism and elements of like abstraction in these. How do you think about like what should be abstract? Like, how do you think about your compositions in terms of like, when you look at these, are you thinking of abstraction, or you're thinking more,
I
like-
think probably more movement, which I guess is
that makes a
abstract
lot
in
of
itself.
sense, yeah.
It's, again, I keep coming back to the game. I have this fantasy that people will come and they'll stand next to them and play the game.
I feel certain they will.
Wait, I think you two should. Just do
Yeah.
just one.
So are we going to do our hands or are we going to point to one?
Oh, let's do 1 and 1. So
hands
the first one we'll do hands and then we'll do, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, 1, 2, 3. What are the chances? I can't.
All right. All right, now point to one.
All right.
Without even looking, just point.
1, 2, 3. What? This is a mind meld that I've never seen. 1, 2, 3. I was gonna do that one too.
She beat you to it. She beat you to it.
Yeah, so there's definitely movement in the playing of the game, and then I suppose as I'm arranging, I think the pictures end up telling me more than I tell them, but I would feel it if they didn't feel like they were moving.
Yeah, and because their action, like the game is always action.
Yeah.
That I think that it brings a nice vibrancy and energy to them, and yet the way that you use color, the way you use sequencing, it gives you a nice center, so you feel comfortable in approaching them, and yet when you're approaching them, they're fun. So I really love that.
I was going to ask you a question that has more to do with composition, getting back to some of the art language in this. Because the compositions are very strong in each one. You haven't gone. These are focused. I mean, they really get in close to what's going on, close to the paper, close to the objects, and so on the one. But there's breathability in them because of how you've placed things, particularly with your diagonals. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about placing your diagonals?
Nope. I didn't realize that until you said that. And yes, you're right. There's a really strong diagonal in each of them. And that's not surprising because I would work on one and it flowed into the next. So my bet is that, again, I probably responded to the movement and then some part of me was remembering this diagonal. And it really asserted itself, I think.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell you that I certainly thought about some sort of important ratio that you're supposed to know.
The golden mean.
So I think that also one of the things that's interesting about your compositions, and we were talking about this in reference to your other pieces, is that you can you can usually do them in multiple directions. I could easily turn this upside down and it would still work as a composition. I could put this on a diamond and it would still work as a composition. But also something else about them is these work as small and intimate, but they also work large, which I think is really, I think it's an indicator usually of a very strong composition. You also often use, especially in these, and this is kind of a departure from the other work of yours that I've seen, you are great on color, but also you think of blocking a lot. Like, how did you think of these? Like, what came to you first, the coloring or the layering? Like, did you allow how things layer to kind of give you that idea, or did you let the color inform how you were going to layer?
And that one, the color came last, I think. I'm trying to remember. I knew I wanted the scissors on top.
Yeah.
And I think that the color just came later to help set the paper off.
Well, it's so nice too because you have these little edges of the blue within the scissor that ties it really together. I love these pieces. They're very elegant. They are definitely portraying things on multiple levels. I cannot say enough good things. And I hope that tons of people come out and tons of people see this and play the game with us. Because they're fun.
Never matched like we did.
I know, I cannot believe that. I don't think that's ever happened to me before in my life. We are just two awesome people who make great decisions.
That's right.
So please come see Sarah's awesome work at our portrait show from January 19th through March 12th. Thank you so much.